Part 52. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 533. Don't worry about your broken warp engine, Hound interrupted the excited Layton. If you have time, why not think about how to solve this big hole in front of you? Although the erosion seeds and giant centipedes that invaded the Mukake base have been eliminated, the large hole drilled out still exists. No one is sure whether the heretical sect will use this passage to launch a second wave towards the base. Attack. Do you want to chase him into the cave? Layton was stunned for a moment and asked. Idiot! The Hound kicked him on the butt with a very skillful movement. Don't chase the poor guy, do you understand? Besides, if we run into this tunnel without the support of this big guy in the sky, how many erosion seeds do you think you can kill by yourself? 5. 10. Then what should we do? We can't stay here forever, can we? Layton muttered, raising his head and glancing at the Agunakotaur floating above the base. This battleship can't stay stationary forever in this place. Don't worry, everyone, the higher UPS have already given a solution. A familiar Hound voice came from behind. They turned around and saw that Lieutenant General Maginot had already gathered dozens of soldiers from the guard camp and two under the protection of the heavy shield iron control mecha. They rushed to the edge of the giant pit. Maginot? To be honest, I wanted to ask when we were still on the battleship, why are you here? The Hound looked at the other person with some doubts. Nick, you are here too. This matter is a long story. Maginot glanced at everyone one by one. As the connector between the military department and Kaylan, hunting, he could still recognize the members of the regiment. As for the people wearing dark gray uniforms next to them, they should be from the Security Bureau. Didn't the Security Bureau have some friction with Kaylan and others? How could they get involved now? Is that battleship in the sky still related to the Security Bureau? Maginot Center murmured. Regarding the molten fire as a senior member of the garrison, he was completely unaware of the reconnaissance mission in the mining area. I've told you many times, don't call that name, the Hound said angrily. Since it's a long story, let's make it short. I'm really puzzled. You can't even run a 200-meter dash like this. You fat pig who can pant, if you can't just sit in your office, why do you come to Mukake? Lose weight? I don't know either, Maginot said with a grimace. With a transfer order from above, I was directly sent to Mukake base. Now I am the top military commander of this base. Have you been transferred to the field force? Hound suppressed a smile and looked at Lieutenant General Maginot's figure. When marching in the field, if the car breaks down, the soldiers under your command will be able to carry it. Touch you. Stop mocking me. Maginot waved his hand and said helplessly, what can I do about the orders from above? You also know that I am neither good at running nor good at fighting. I don't know why I was transferred to such a strategic location. Hound, I think you have a good relationship with Kaylan. If there is a chance, can you ask him to help me ask the people above? As he spoke, Maginot suddenly lowered his voice and leaned into the Hound's ear. I know that Kaylan has a close relationship with the crew. If he is willing to speak, he should be able to ask something. Maginot's face was full of flattery. Logically speaking, given his status, there was no need to lower his posture so low. To take a step back, even if Hound is still serving in the army, no matter how powerful he is in fighting, his stubborn temper and repeated disobedience will make him a lieutenant general. Both of them have basically the same qualifications and military ranks. They were on the same level, and Maginot didn't have to act so groveling when he saw the Hound. But things are different now. Kaylan seems to have established a connection with the Undead Crew Association. The status of the Hound, who is closely related to Kaylan, is naturally different from the past. Maginot knows very well that the title of general, with its okay to scare ordinary people, but in the eyes of the Undead Crew, this is bullshit. Maybe even worse than a fart. If he could be transferred back to the garrison in this way, let alone pretending to be a grandson, he could just let Maginot lie down and help Kaylan lick his boots. Of course, the premise is that it must be in a place where no one can see it. This time, he almost lost his life, and Maginot didn't want it to happen again. But what he didn't expect was that there was a look of confusion on Hound's face. The crew knows. What crew knows? Huh? You didn't know that the crew would? Maginot was stunned for a moment, then realized that he seemed to have made a very serious mistake, and quickly changed his words. It is an organization formed by the Joint Parliamentary Group and the heads of the consortium. That's what we often refer to as the people above. The orders of the Immortal Crew Association are basically issued through the Joint Parliamentary Group. Maginot's explanation is actually correct. From this point of view, Kaylan is probably the only one in the God-hunting group, and he and the Immortal Crew Association will through direct contact. Then I'm afraid we won't be able to help you. Hound squinted his eyes and looked at Maginot thoughtfully, because we can't see those big shots at all, only because they give us orders. Oh, by the way, this time using Yagonactor to support the Muka base is also an order from above. Oh. Maginot, who wanted to change the topic quickly, nodded repeatedly. So that's it? By the way, what's the solution you just mentioned? Seeing that Maginot seemed to have lost interest in this topic, the Hound tactfully brought the conversation back to the topic. Oh, that's right. I just received news that a transport fleet has been organized by ARC. It will transport a large amount of building materials to Muka base within 3 days to fill this big hole. So count including the construction time, you only need to assist in the defense for about a week before you can return to the ARC, Maginot said, including the battleship operated by Kaylan. Okay, just 1 week. By the way, is the base responsible for our meals? Hound nodded. Yes, Levi replied from the side, except for food, all supplies for the Molten Mine reconnaissance team are provided by Muka base. If you have any special requirements, as long as they are within the scope of what we can meet, we will also you can bring it up to us. That's good. Eat compressed biscuits every day. Now I feel sick to my stomach when I smell the smell of peanut butter. I have to get something good to comfort my stomach, Hound said. Hound, you probably don't know that what I, the military commander of the base, have been eating these past 2 days are canned synthetic meat and bean sprouts. Maginot said with a wry smile, fresh ingredients delivered in the last batch. It has been exhausted for a long time. Today was originally the day when the transport convoy arrived, but the convoy was attacked by the heretic sect before the base. To be honest, before the next batch of supplies is delivered, we can only rely on emergency reserves. Come to spend the day. As the local emperor here, don't you have any personal inventory? Hound looked at him suspiciously. Today is my 2nd day in office, what do you think? Maginot shrugged. Okay, canned food is better than compressed biscuits that are so hard that they can break your teeth. The Hound nodded. Then arrange a place for us. The accommodation has been arranged. Please come with me. Levi stood up. The intruders have been eliminated, but there are still a lot of things to deal with in this endgame, so I won't accompany you. Maginot pointed at Levi. This is my adjutant. If you have anything, just tell him directly. That's it? Okay. The Hound watched Maginot leave in the car, and then calmly retreated to the back of the team, keeping a distance from Levi and Ayala. Then, he opened a one-to-one communication channel with Kaylan. Kaylan, I just met that fat man from Maginot. He was transferred to the field force and is also the military officer of this base. Of course, these are not the point. The point is that he said that you and a certain crew member we have a lot of connections, and I also want you to help him put in a good word with the crew association and transfer him back to the garrison. The crew will, what did Maginot say? He said that the crew association is an organization created by the Joint Parliamentary Group and the heads of the financial groups, but his eyes kept looking away when he said this, and he looked very guilty. I suspect that he was not telling the truth. The crew meeting he mentioned should be the immortal crew meeting. Kaylan was silent for a few seconds and then said, "The Immortal Crew Club. Well, what I know so far is that the highest authority organization in the Ark, whether it is the United Parliamentary Group or the Business Alliance, must obey the orders of this Undead Crew Association. In other words, they are the highest controllers of the Ark. I knew that guy Maginot was lying to me. By the way, have you really come into contact with this Undead Crew member?" Yes, Kaylan did not deny, "We have had several contacts. This reconnaissance mission in the Molten Mine area was actually entrusted by them, but it is impossible to say that we have a close relationship with them. I haven't even seen the true face of any of them." So far, Kaylan has had several contacts with the Undead Crew, either through the internet, or through channels such as cyborgs or remote-controlled biochemicals. The only person who has seen the self is Pope Chiron. But by that time Chiron was no longer a member of the Undead Crew. So strictly speaking, he had never met any member of this mysterious organization. Then do you know their identities? Did a few members of the joint parliamentary group with a relatively high voice create such a thing? To suppress other members who have different opinions from them? According to me, it is really possible for them to do it. Something like this happened, Hound guessed. If this is the case, then Maginot is not lying. Kaylan replied, "I do not rule out the existence of members of the Undead Crew Association in the United Parliamentary Group, but I feel that the United Parliamentary Group is just a puppet they put on the outside, a vest used to give orders." Kaylan has also had many thoughts about the members of the Immortal Crew Association. Based on the existing intelligence, in his opinion, the reason why this group of people are unwilling to stand in front of the stage may have an inseparable reason from themselves. Maginot once told Kaylan that every member of the Immortal Crew has lived for a long time. Although they are not immortal in the true sense, their lifespan is at least several times that of ordinary humans. Coupled with Chiron's mountain of meat, huge and weird body and incredible special abilities, Kaylan has every reason to believe that the members of the Undead Crew are not human beings. Perhaps they were once human beings, but with their current state, looking at them from an ordinary person's perspective, they would definitely not be recognized as their own kind. Even Kaylan himself, when he first saw Pope Chiron, subconsciously regarded him as a monster similar to the seed of corrosion, a fusion of humans and biochemical weapons. Kaylan couldn't help but guess what the other members of the Immortal Crew would look like. If they were all such monsters, then everything would make sense. Because they gave up their human bodies, they gained a lifespan that far exceeded that of humans. It is precisely because of this that they cannot walk under the light. People can accept being ruled by their own kind, but they absolutely cannot accept their own rule. It is a monster completely different from itself. Especially when it comes to the stance against heretical sects, some people will definitely have doubts. Since our own ruler has abandoned the human body and turned into a monster, why should we suppress another one who is trying to take advantage of the Alpha civilization? What about those who allow humans to evolve through technology? Various conspiracy theories and suspicions will rapidly spread and ferment among the people, order will be subverted, and rules will be broken. When the human race falls into self-doubt and madness, destruction is not far away. No matter what the purpose of the Undead Crew is, at least they are still maintaining the stability of human society. The actions of heretical sects are obviously more likely to push mankind to the extreme of destruction. Kaylan is not an immature child and does not think that righteous people must be good and villains must be bad. The world is not black and white. There is nothing wrong with what the prophet said. Human beings must evolve and become stronger in order to survive in this universe. Kaylan did not deny this statement, but what the prophet did was too radical and too self-centered. He didn't take ordinary people seriously at all, and all he could think about was how to transcend his race. Limitation, become the kind of thing called God. In his eyes, the human race is not important at all. As long as he can become a god, everything can be discarded. Kaylan didn't know if the prophet himself had activated the holy word. If he had really been in contact with that distant line of sight, he would have discovered that his current power was far away from the God mentioned in Alpha civilization. There is a gap that cannot be described in words. This gap cannot be bridged by individual organisms, not even prehistoric species with nearly unlimited lifespans. Old dog, thinking of this, Kaylan suddenly said seriously, "Don't mention this matter of the Immortal Crew Club in front of other people in the future." "What's wrong? Is there any danger?" The hound was startled and said immediately, "If there is any danger, you should tell us instead of taking the responsibility alone. This matter becomes dangerous precisely because more people know about it. The fewer people know about it, the safer it is. P.S. Thanks to Emperor Tajian and the Sound of Rain for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 534. In the next week, the mission of the God Hunting Group was to help defend Mukake Base, which was actually a paid vacation in another sense. Leighton and Valentina plunged into the base. In the Mecha warehouse, Hound took Zwilajitu and Ivan to go have a drink with old acquaintances from the field troops. Although Akira Asano had no activities, at least he stayed in the dormitory and was happy to have some leisure time. Ayabrita and her special agent team took the transport plane back to Ark to resume their duties after handing over with the members of the Security Bureau branch at Mukake Base, the only remaining members of the entire reconnaissance team. Instead of Kaylan, a hard-working social worker, he still has to stay on the battleship and work overtime every day. But there is nothing that can be done about it. In order to prevent the heretical sect from coming back, Agunakota must always keep an eye on the tunnel and the area around the base, and the only one who can control this battleship is Kaylan. Although the warship has an automatic cruise mode, considering that the Prophet also has a lot of information related to the warship, it is possible to send a task force to seize the warship. If the warship falls into their hands, the Muka base, the situation that has just stabilized, may collapse in an instant. No, not only the Muka base will be GG, but even the human base camp Ark will be under huge threat. This thing is much more terrifying than a Leviathan. And with the Prophet's reckless and crazy character, even if the weapons on the Yagunactor are useless, he can still directly smash the entire battleship as a cannonball. To avoid this kind of thing, Kaylan has to sit in the power room himself. He feels like the kind of hunter who finds priceless treasures in ruins. Before exchanging the things for credits, he must always exchange the treasures. Just carry it in your arms. You can't leave it even when sleeping, for fear of being stolen by others. In a sense, this battleship can indeed be regarded as a treasure dug out of the ruins, but it is a big treasure, a very, very, very big treasure. Fortunately, the console of the Yagunactor battleship can be connected to the network of the Mukake base. Not only that, it can even perfectly simulate the infrastructure of a human computer for running those using computer languages. Written computer program. Although Kaylan couldn't crack the way the console worked, he would be very familiar with the digital world of zeros and ones. Taking advantage of having nothing to do these days, he was so idle that he even made a half-finished immersive shooting game. With the help of the consciousness connection of the console, Kaylan can directly control the virtual world with his own thoughts and consciousness. The characters, as for the models and data of weapons, venues, monsters, etc., are borrowed resources from the military simulation training system. However, compared with the kind of realistic training that uses a controller or a keyboard and mouse to operate, this game made by Kaylan is much more realistic. Going forward, backward, and turning are no longer fixed WASD commands, and you can change the perspective. And firing is not about swinging the mouse and clicking the left button. Players who enter this game will feel as if they are in a different space whose style is slightly different from the real world. The console's consciousness connection device will block the brain's ability to signals sent by the real body, and these signals are input into the characters in the game. Kaylan couldn't help but think of the recently popular virtual immersion technology on Ark. If the data here could be packaged and bought to developers to improve their immersion engines, it is estimated that these developers could provide Klan like an emperor. Of course, this kind of thing can only be thought about. All data related to Yagonactor can probably be classified as the top secret of ARC. Before it is adopted by the research institute or the military, it is absolutely impossible to enter the civilian market. On the fourth day after the Mukake base was attacked, when Klan was carrying Gatling in the virtual game and shooting at zombies all over the mountains and plains, the transport fleet from ARC finally arrived at the base. Also arriving with the transport fleet was an unexpected uninvited guest from Klan. This uninvited guest was personally accompanied by Maginot on board the Yagonactor. Logically speaking, when the transport fleet arrived at Mukake, Lieutenant General Maginot should be so busy that he even got his butt wet. It's better to get to the chair. Let alone come to Klan on his own initiative. Even if Klan and the others want to go find Maginot, he may not have time to deal with it. The identity of this uninvited guest was already obvious. Hello, this may be the first time we have met. This is a woman who looks about 40 years old and has a graceful and luxurious temperament. I am the fourth seat of the Immortal Crew Association's queen. You can also call me Demeter. Compared with Lieutenant General Maginot, who couldn't help but look around after entering the interior of Yagonactor for the first time, Demeter seemed much calmer. Those stone walls covered with crystalline structures and controls the metal ball suspended on the stage, she only glanced at it lightly. From the beginning to the end, her attention was entirely focused on Klan. For some reason, Klan always had the illusion that this immortal in the eyes of the crew, they seemed to be more important than this powerful ancient battleship. No, it's not an illusion. After Klan and Demeter looked at each other for a few seconds, he was basically sure that in the eyes of the other party, his priority was really above this battleship. Hello, Ms. Demeter. Klan subconsciously raised his palm, but halfway through, he felt that this more casual greeting did not seem to be suitable for the current scene, so he could only say awkwardly. He put down his palms and bowed to the other party stiffly. Lieutenant General Maginot, please return to the transport plane first. Demeter nodded slightly to Klan, and then said to Lieutenant General Maginot, who was standing behind him. Oh. Yes. I will obey your order, Maginot replied somewhat incoherently. Klan noticed that this guy shivered involuntarily after hearing Demeter speak to him. Even the fat on his cheeks trembled twice. There was a trace of grievance and unwillingness in his eyes. After giving Klan a final look with pleading eyes, he turned around and stepped into the portal. Klan knew that Lieutenant General Maginot wanted to intercede for him, so that the undead crew would transfer him away from the Muka base. Muka, who now has Yagonactor to help defend him, can be said to be apart from the Ark. It is the most difficult human fortress to conquer on Alpha Planet, but Yagonactor will leave sooner or later. By then, if the heretical sect launches another attack, can the base be defended? That's two things to say. After watching Maginot leave, Klan closed the portal and focused his attention on Demeter. He had to admit that she was a beautiful woman. Even though she was no longer young, her mature charm and noble temperament were mixed together, which gave birth to a different kind of charm, which has not experienced the precipitation of time. You can't find it on the young green girl. A single gesture is enough to make a man with weak determination fall under her pomegranate skirt. Coupled with the expensive, well-tailored rose-colored dress, the outrageously exquisite precious metal jewelry and the hairstyle made by a professional stylist, such a woman will look stunning when she appears at any dinner party. Instantly became the focus of the audience. But it's a pity that the stunning and beautiful woman in front of Klan is not a human at all. Although the cream-like skin exudes a moist shimmer, and its texture and lines are no different from those of a real person, Klan can't see the cyan blood vessels under the skin at all, and her towering breasts never move with her breathing. It went up and down with the rhythm. Moreover, when she just turned her head to talk to Maginot, Klan could clearly see the exposed metal joint on the back of her neck through the gap between her hair. Like Justice Meets, Queen Demeter also uses a stand-in. This stand-in is not even a cyborg, but can only be regarded as a highly realistic robot. The only difference is that Justice's stand-in is an unmodified body, while Demeter's stand-in is carefully dressed up. Even Kaylan, who is not very sensitive to such things, can see that the leather sheath that Demeter puts on the outside of the body can be cut into an area the size of a palm. The value is completely worth the cyborg prosthetic body and bionic organs that Leighton wears inside and out. The lack of texture of subcutaneous blood vessels is probably the only shortcoming of this leather sheath. When Kaylan was looking at Demeter, she was also looking at Kaylan with a scrutinizing gaze. After the two looked at each other in silence for almost 10 seconds, she said, "You did a good job in this mission. All members of the Undead Crew Club are very satisfied with your performance." "Oh, is it true?" Kaylan made an expression of surprise that couldn't be faked. "Then I'm really honored. There is still a long time before the next assessment mission. After all, if we want a new member to join the Undead Crew, we must be very cautious in the assessment process." Demeter said, "We will not interfere with your freedom during this time." "It's very good. To be honest, the difficulty of your assessment tasks can be regarded as death level. I'm not a masochist. I don't like the rhythm of rushing to reincarnate. It would be nice to give me a holiday." Kaylan said. Sure enough, there must be differences within this group of people. Some people want to join the Undead Crew Club, while others don't want to join. The opposition may have wanted to trick themselves into using difficult tasks at the beginning, but after they perfectly completed the first assessment task, they changed their strategy to a procrastination strategy. While delaying their joining the Undead Crew Club, they tried to design a more difficult assessment task. Why are these people so reluctant to let themselves join? Do they simply think that they are not qualified, or are they afraid of something? But after our discussion, we decided to give you some phased rewards first. Demeter said, "From today on, you will be the captain of Yagonactor and also the captain of S-019, the person in charge of the ruins." Kaylan couldn't help but narrowed his eyes slightly. In his prediction, there is still a relatively high probability of letting himself serve as the captain of the Yagonactor. After all, this battleship was launched by himself, and in the matter of rushing to the rescue of Muka, he has shown enough loyalty again. After a normal person gains control of such a super battleship, he or she will immediately consider how to set up his own business, but Kaylan still obeys the orders of ARC and the Undead Crew Association. From this point of view, they have no reason to take away their control. Instead of kicking yourself away and choosing another captain, it is better to give yourself such a sweet date to eat as the tide goes. You don't have to worry about being dissatisfied, and you don't have to consider whether the new candidate is reliable. From another aspect, he said that this appointment could also brush up the favorability of his center towards the Immortal Crew Association. An excellent ruler must treat his subordinates with both kindness and power. If the Undead Crew members don't even have this courage, then I'm afraid no one will be willing to sacrifice their lives for them. Unless the members of the Immortal Crew Guild are personally controlling the battleship, Kaylan, who is a reserve member of the Immortal Crew Guild, is the only best person. But this S-019 ruins, if Kaylan remembers correctly, the S-class ruins are only ranked 18th now, right? That's the bottomless sinkhole they explored before. Is it possible that this S-019 ruins? I have already guessed what you are thinking, Demeter suddenly said. Yes, the 19th S-class relic is the ancient battleship Yagonactor. If you regard this battleship as the 19th S-class ruins, do you plan to open it to all hunters? Kaylan couldn't help but frowned. You haven't considered what if there are several heretical sects mixed in. Spies, for example, guys like Park Sang-woo. Since they can deceive you the first time, they will naturally deceive you a second time. If such people are allowed to enter the interior of the battleship, have you considered the consequences? But there are many unexplored spaces inside Yagonactor, which contain a large number of high-value items, as well as various technologies used by the warship itself. If they can be fully developed, they will be enough to bring the technological level of human civilization improve several levels, Demeter said. Of course we have considered the issues you mentioned, so we decided that you will be the person in charge of this new ruins. The exploration and development of the ruins will be under your full control. You can only your hunting god hunting group can explore Yagunactor, or you can jointly explore with hunting groups under the military, research institutes, and major consortiums. The distribution of exploration profits is also entirely up to you. As long as the partner can accept it, we will not interfere with it. What do you think? So, can I charge the ticket money? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 535. Demeter was slightly startled, as if she did not expect Kaylan to ask such a question. After almost 3 seconds, she replied, "The decision is yours. In other words, I can decide who is qualified to enter the S-019 ruins for exploration by selling tickets, and I can even operate this place as a tourist attraction. I think, those wealthy families, the noble young ladies, would fight over their heads for such a ticket. You are free to choose your operating model and we will not interfere with it," Demeter said. "But aren't you worried about me selling tickets to people from heretical sects?" Kaylan asked again. This is a tricky and sensitive issue that both parties have to face, since the undead crew has decided to let Kaylan take full charge of the operation of the S-019 ruins, which is the ancient battleship Agunakotaur. Then, in the process of pursuing maximizing profits, it is natural that some things that are contrary to the stance of the Immortal Crew Association are inevitable. You know, in the old era, some businessmen even sold important materials to people from enemy countries in order to make money. In the eyes of capital, interests always come first, and neither nationality nor morality can constrain them. Without a powerful violent machine to control it, the power of capital will definitely become the main culprit of world unrest. After all, there are few ways to make money faster than making war fortune. Demeter looked at Kaylan and said, "You have witnessed a lot of the atrocities of the heretical sect with your own eyes, and its founder Prophet has had a direct conversation with you. You should be very clear that he has chosen a path with no future. On the road of madness, he and his heretical sect will eventually go to destruction. Otherwise, why do you think the crew would give up such an opportunity to allow all human beings to evolve into higher-level creatures? Individual power is not real power. The strength of civilization is the foundation for a race to gain a foothold in the universe." Although she did not answer the question directly, Kaylan had to admit that her rhetoric was far more convincing than a direct answer such as "we believe in you." Kaylan even has reason to believe that in the hands of the Undead Crew Association, there should be a more important trump card than Agunakotaur. This so-called reward may also be a part of the assessment. "Haha, I was actually just joking." Kaylan showed an extremely hypocritical smile, "but what I am a little curious about is why you want to hand over the operation rights of the S-019 ruins to me instead of directly send a member to take over this battleship. To be honest, I am a layman. When it comes to rewards and the like, you can just give me a credit card with unlimited limit and no need to repay. Anyway, for you, things like credit points are just a bunch of data." "If you think so, you are absolutely wrong," Demeter replied. "Credit points are essentially the same as banknotes from the old era. Although the central bank can increase fiscal revenue in disguise by printing more banknotes, temporarily alleviate the financial crisis, but the consequence of doing so is to accelerate the collapse of the social financial system. In the old era, there were more than 200 countries and regions and dozens of world-class economies in the world. Despite this, there were still several outbreaks economic crisis, but now, we only have one arc and a population of less than 100 million. Such a social structure has a very weak risk-taking capacity. The people are very sensitive to these things. If the purchasing power of credit points fluctuates significantly, if so, then the entire human society will immediately fall into chaos. So, even you can't print money unscrupulously. Of course not, Demeter nodded, although I think that giving you an unlimited credit card, as long as you don't use this card to acquire the assets and shares of major consortiums, and only use it for daily consumption, will not affect the financial structure of ARC, but we cannot set this precedent. At present, the total number of credit points circulating on ARC is in a state of dynamic balance, a formation between ARC officials, major financial groups and the public. It creates a good cycle, and this kind of unlimited card is equivalent to a bug in a perfect computer program. The undead crew will not allow this kind of bug to appear. Even if it does not temporarily affect the operation of the program any impact. It seems that when you are a leader, you need to consider a lot of things, Kaylan said. This group of guys seems to be a bunch of obsessive-compulsive and perfectionists who can't tolerate any mistakes. But from this point we can also see the difference between them and the Prophet. If the Prophet were to be the ruler of the Ark, let alone maintaining the economic system, it would be nice if he didn't send everyone to the experimental platform. It is estimated that the entire human civilization will regress directly back to that dark slave society. No. Calling him a slave society may be a compliment. The Prophet is definitely a loyal supporter of Darwinism. If the disguise of a religious organization is taken off, then the heretical sect is more like a herd of beasts preying on the weak. The strength of an individual represents the absolute right to speak. In their eyes, the same kind can be either a partner or an opponent, or even food. It is difficult for ordinary people to survive in such a group. The core idea of Darwinism is survival of the fittest, but when the external environment is harsh to a certain extent, even those individuals who can be considered excellent will he also had to face the fate of being eliminated. According to the Prophet, as long as a few people, even just him, completed the final evolution, it would be considered a victory. As for other individuals, they can all be sacrificed or even discarded. If it weren't for the seed of corrosion's high physical requirements for the container, Kaylan estimates that the current heretical sect would have been fully containerized. For some reason, Kaylan suddenly had a scary thought in his head. If ARC had not instituted the crime of exile at the beginning, but had executed all those who should have been exiled, would the heretical sect have no power at all? What if there is no soil for development? Anyway, the survival rate of the exiles is less than 1/20th, and for most people, it is no different from the death penalty. Is the crime of exile established by ARC's top leaders to frighten the people, or is it to prevent criminals from taking extreme measures because they are desperate? Or are they using these exiles to explore unvisited areas on Alpha? Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi San. Chapter 536. Chapter 513 Invitation Letter from Ruins S-019. From the perspective of making the best use of everything, Kaylan feels that the last guess is the most likely. Compared with using death row prisoners to conduct in vivo experiments, this method will bear much less public condemnation, but it can reap rewards. The results will not be much worse. ARC only needs to send out drones to track these prisoners who have been exiled to the wilderness, and naturally they can harvest a lot of valuable information and data. But the situation that things have developed into today is probably something that ARC senior management did not consider at the beginning. In just 50 years, the number of exiles has actually increased to the point where it is difficult to track, so much so that heretical sects have taken advantage of it. Kaylan couldn't help but think of the phrase "the tail is too big to fall off." Demeter did not stay on the battleship for long. She left after telling Kaylan that a gunactor would have a fleet to guide it to a preset parking location when it arrived near the Ark. Gunactor. As for the operation of the ruins, he didn't even mention a single request. From this moment on, Kaylan truly became the highest authority controller of Gunactor. However, he soon realized that the undead crew members were playing a word game with him. What he had was the highest authority of Gunactor as the relic of S-019, not the ancient battleship Yagunakter Gunakotaur has the highest authority. In other words, when it is a ruins, Klan is the owner of this ruins. But when it is regarded as a battleship, Klan's identity becomes the captain. The captain needs to obey the orders of the Ark's senior management, that is, the group of people in the undead crew. These old foxes, they played this move very well, Klan muttered, but it's okay to think about it, let alone a super battleship like a Gunakotaur. Even it is impossible for the captain to have complete independent control over a 100-meter-long gunboat. Judging from the obsessive-compulsive personality of those people, they will never allow a warship to appear that does not need to obey the instructions of the crew. In layman's terms, if Klan wants to use a Gunakotaur as a real estate to collect rent, they allow it, but if Klan wants to use this battleship as a weapon, you must first obtain permission from the crew association. It's better to give me an unlimited credit card. The transport fleet and Demeter, who had completed unloading the cargo, left Mukake that night. The engineering troops that came with the fleet stayed behind and worked overtime with the garrison at the base to start emergency repair operations. Although at first many people turned their surprised eyes to the Yagunakter suspended in the air, as time went by, the horror in everyone's hearts gradually faded away, and they focused on their work. Middle. Hound and others also returned to a Gunakotaur twice. They told Klan that Ark's top management had no intention of concealing a Gunakotaur. On the same day that the transport fleet arrived, the battleship Gunakotaur has already made headlines in major media, and entries such as S-019 ruins, super ancient battleship, and a Gunakotaur are even more popular. It occupies the top spot on the hot search list and beats other news dozens of times in terms of popularity. However, what made Klan slightly relieved was that the Undead Crew Association did not announce the name of the God Hunting Group and Klan, nor did it mention anything related to the Third Civilization. The news reports of those media also focused entirely on the astonishing size and technical level of Yagunakter, while their origins were briefly mentioned. Klan remembered very clearly that there were no media personnel arriving at Muka with the transport fleet, and there were no media personnel stationed at Muka base except the military media. The reason why those media were able to get this information was it should be provided to them by the official initiative, and the content and topics of the news will naturally be controlled just right. That guy Maginot called out your name on the public channel that day. Fortunately, the gag order was issued in time. Otherwise, there should be a few more hot search terms. The discoverer of the ancient battleship and the manipulator was actually a poor boy who was spotted by the daughter of the Soma Consortium half a year ago, the legendary path of the ruin hunter Klan, Miss Sophia Soma's astonishing vision for choosing a husband, and so on. Hound picked his teeth with the nail of his little finger and joked, "It's a pity that our God hunting group has not been listed yet, otherwise the stock price will have to rise at the limit for at least half a month. Then the entrance to the hunting group headquarters will be crowded with paparazzi, won't you be annoyed?" Yvonne said. "Don't forget, Klan's secrets cannot be made public. It's better for us to keep a low profile." "But the problem is that we can't keep a low profile now even if we want to," Klan shrugged helplessly. "Although the mass media has not announced our identities, the upper circles of Ark must have got the news. After all, if you want to, you can't spend money to buy tickets without knowing who the ticket seller is. Although I don't know why Ark's senior management chose to hand over this battleship to you," Yvonne said, "but it is undoubtedly a hot potato. Klan, you have to be careful." "I also know it's a hot potato, but people have already thrown it at me, so I have to take it." Klan nodded. "I have thought about the exploration permissions for a long time. Are you really planning to sell tickets?" Hound pouted. "Although I like money very much, there is an old saying in China, a gentleman loves money, and he must get it in a wise way. This is not the way to make money. What if, and I mean what if, the tickets do fall into the hands of a heretical sect? That would be bad." "Of course not. Selling tickets was just a joke. I used it to test those people's bottom line." Klan smiled. "It turns out they don't care at all." Don't care at all, Hound was stunned and asked. Well, what they mean is that as long as I can guarantee that the tickets will not fall into the hands of the heretical sect, even if I really collect the money with one hand and release the people with the other, it is okay. Speaking of which, as long as we raise the review threshold, it seems that selling tickets is not impossible. Hound pondered, gently rubbing the stubble on his chin with his fingers. But I thought of another way. Compared with tickets, wouldn't something like an invitation letter have more weight? Kaylan said, just like the invitation letter to the VIP viewing area that Yayan gave us. Same thing, this thing is much more difficult to get than tickets that can be bought with money. P.S. Thank you to book friend 150509201300204 for the 3000 starting coins. Thank you to book friend 20200430025412706 for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 537. First of all, one thing is certain, with the size and ability of the hunting god hunting group, it is impossible to swallow such a large piece of cake alone. Not only them, but any hunting group on the Ark would not be able to complete the exploration of Yagunactor on their own. Not only because the progress of exploration will be very slow, but also because of this eating alone attitude, it is easy to be jealous of others. Even if Kaylan has an undead crew behind him to support him, there will inevitably be some greedy pinkies get in the way. Although the small actions of these people will not cause any harm to the hunting god hunting group, they will disgust people from all kinds of small things, especially when a group of pinkies unite. The god hunting group must not be isolated. They must find a group of partners and form an alliance to jointly explore and develop this warship. With enough allies around, when some villains cause harm, they will naturally not dare to be so unscrupulous. But the choice of this partner is also very particular. Compared with enemies from outside, backstabbing from allies is something Kaylan is more afraid of. First of all, the quotas for the army and the institute have been determined. The army is the most powerful violent institution on the Ark, and it is also directly controlled by the undead crew. Like the United Parliamentary Group, they can also be regarded as the immortal crew will be an agent on the surface, and Kaylan cannot refuse. The Research Institute, they possess the most high-end technology and talents on Ark. If you want to maximize the transformation of exploration results into tangible benefits, the Research Institute is indispensable. What's more, if Kaylan chooses to cooperate with other forces, most of the things discovered during the exploration process will eventually be transferred to the Research Institute. It is better to let the God Hunting Group establish a cooperative relationship with the Research Institute directly to avoid the need for middlemen to make money. This price difference. As for the remaining options, the only ones are the Security Bureau and various large private consortiums. Now Kaylan already knows that the Security Bureau can basically be regarded as a direct force of the Immortal Crew Association. To put it in a layman's terms, this group of people is just like the Aoki secret agents and Jin Yaiwei in ancient times. They are responsible for doing things for the Emperor. He does dirty work like wiping buttocks and cleaning toilets. As for the so-called director, he is just a puppet who takes orders from the Crew Association. Kaylan had no need to please them at first, but then he thought about it. If the Security Bureau was also involved, if some unsighted people came out to cause trouble, then he would be labeled as suspected of endangering the safety of Ark. Go up there, it's enough for them to eat and walk around. Although the Security Bureau will not be of much help in the process of exploring the ruins, at least the name is enough to scare people, and it can be used to deter those who want to cause trouble because they can't eat the cake. Speaking of major consortiums, the first thing that Kaylan thought of was Zofia Soma Consortium. However, Zofia is not yet the head of the Soma family. If she goes directly to the Soma Consortium, even if Kaylan named Zofia to be responsible for cooperation matters, and several other heirs of the Soma family will definitely look for opportunities to insert their own people. Kaylan is not interested in the intrigues within the big conglomerates and big families, but if these people bring this mess into the ruins, then he can't ignore it. Although Kaylan can connect to the console of Vagunakota, there are still more than 90% of the areas inside the battleship that cannot be opened to him due to insufficient authority. The degree of danger in these areas is completely unknown, and no one knows. I don't know what dangers I will encounter inside. If there are still people in the exploration team who have their own little plans in mind, are unwilling to cooperate with others, and are even scheming against their own teammates, then it is entirely possible that the entire team will be destroyed. Everyone in the team was killed. Bringing in just one of these black sheep is enough to cause a headache. If you bring in a group of them, Kaylan feels that he can already prepare funeral arrangements for the members of this exploration team. Choosing to cooperate with a consortium is more troublesome. Within any consortium, the interest relationships are very complicated. Even brothers will turn against each other because of the fight for inheritance rights, let alone shareholders who are not necessarily related by blood. Kaylan thought for a moment, and decided that it would be better to let Sophia participate as a shareholder of the God Hunting Group, and then use her as a link to let the Soma Consortium join the alliance in disguise. In this way, the people involved in exploring the ruins they are all Sophia's cronies, so there is no need to worry about other members of the Soma family getting involved. If they can gain anything from the ruins, it can all be attributed to her, helping Sophia improve her status in the Soma family. If they are lucky, they can directly help her to become the head of the family. It's not impossible. By then, no one will say that Kaylan is a freeloader, and there may be many wealthy nobles who want to send their young ladies to him, even though Ark is in principle monogamous. But the relevant laws have a lot of loopholes that can be exploited. Many men from large families have more than one female partner. Of course, if a woman is in an absolutely powerful position, then the situation will be completely reversed. Kaylan once saw a piece of news on the internet. Ms. Maria, who started out as a jewelry and art company, her harem group, the number of men is in 3 figures, and many new members are added every year. Among these men, there are young masters from wealthy aristocrats, popular young stars, and amateurs with ordinary but handsome looks. Even the lady of the male publicist in the nightclub has collected a lot. The only thing they have in common is that they don't want to work hard anymore. The only thing that makes Kaylan a little strange is that there are so many men. That Lady Maria, can she use them? What are you thinking about? You are smiling so lewdly. Hound interrupted Ian's reverie and smiled evilly. Do you think of the eldest lady from the Soma family? Tisk, what are you thinking about? Yes, if you don't take the initiative yourself, who can you blame? They have already arrived at your door. If you were bolder, you would have won it long ago. Do you still need to dream here? I did think about Sophia, but I didn't think about the dirty things you said. I was thinking about whether to drag her into the exploration project of this ruins, Kaylan said righteously, and in an instant throw those ambiguous images out of my mind. TCH? The place where you die is dressed up as a serious man, right? How can this be a dirty thing? You agree with me and it will happen naturally. That is the great harmony between life and nature. How come it has become a dirty thing in your mouth? Hound said silently. The ground raised a middle finger to Kaylan. Yes, you and I are willing, and things will come true. So last month you and Leighton went to Fuzu Street in the New East 9th District to discuss the great harmony between life and nature with your kimono sister, Kaylan immediately replied. Tisk, you don't understand this. The New East 9 District has just been rebuilt, and it's full of waste. It needs people to go there to spend money and drive popularity, so that the whole neighborhood can gradually prosper. This is why the big guy and I generously donated money. Contribute your own strength to the revitalization of the New East 9th District, Hound said seriously, without even a blush on his face. Ah, yes, Leighton, who was suddenly pulled into the topic, quickly agreed. It is our duty to revitalize the economy of backward regions. Contribute your strength. Are you afraid that all your strength has been contributed to others? Kaylan glanced at the two of them speechlessly. Okay, let's get down to business. As for partners, I have decided on 4 for now. The military, the research institute, the security bureau and your beautiful fiancée. Hound immediately answered, you don't have to think about it, it's so easy to guess. Because these companies are a sure thing, Yvonne said, but considering the size of Yagunactor, it is far from enough to rely on the manpower of these companies. That's right, the military, the research institute, the security bureau and the Soma consortium. Together, these companies may not be as good as a few of us, Layton said while counting his fingers. First of all, let's talk about the military. Although the equipment and numbers are large, and the individual strength of the elite troops is not bad, they are soldiers after all, and they are not involved in the delicate work of exploring ruins. In the same way, the same goes for the people in the Research Institute and the Security Bureau. If they are not professional, carrying them is like carrying a bottle of oil. That's right. As for the girl who just left, she and her men have no other abilities, they will only cause trouble for us. Without them, our mission would probably be much smoother, Hound complained. I suspect these people were not sent to help us, but to monitor us. 9 times out of 10, yes, Yvonne nodded. These 3 families themselves are not involved in ruins exploration matters, so I won't go into details here. Layton straightened his 3 bent fingers. The remaining people under the eldest lady's hands are not very good, to be honest. Sample. The Soma consortium itself is not very interested in the business of exploring ruins. The Pioneer icebreaker was not built to explore underwater ruins at the beginning. As for the hunting group under the Soma consortium, although it can be regarded as it is a company-level hunting group, but its strength is only a few levels. In terms of professionalism, it is not even worthy of carrying shoes for a hunting group of Polaris level. Kaylan and the others have already seen the quality of the hunters under the Soma consortium once during the Leviathan mission. To say that they are crooked is already flattering them. They are all a group of third-rate mercenaries who came here. He is a bastard who has neither received systematic training nor any actual exploration experience. When encountering any unexpected situation, he will immediately mess up his position. Kaylan still remembers the man who was hit by his own ricochet. The unlucky guy with the big arteries in his legs. By then, the people sent by Zofia will probably only be able to take charge of some logistical work. To put it bluntly, none of these 4 partners are useful. Hound smacked his lips and said, what we need are experienced elite hunters, preferably those who have been in the industry for decades and have the experience of exploring. There are a lot of A-level and B-level ruins, so it's best if you have experience in exploring S-level ruins. There are too few people like you are talking about. Yvonne shook his head. It is a high-risk industry to begin with. The mortality rate of exploring high-level ruins is so high. I don't think there will be many such experienced veterans in the entire arc. More than 50, and most of them have already washed their hands. Just being coaches and consultants in hunter training institutions is enough to make them a lot of money. How many people are willing to take such a big risk to start again? Are you doing your old business? Hey, I know someone like this. Swilajitu, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly said, that guy has been a ruin hunter for at least 15 years, and has participated in 6 exploration missions of S-class ruins. There are even more ab-level ruins that I have visited, and this guy is still active on the front line of exploring the ruins. Who is it? If there really is such a person, how come I haven't heard of him? Hound was a little puzzled. I know the leaders of the most famous hunting groups, but I don't remember such a number 1 person. Could it be that he can't become a team leader with such qualifications? No, he is not a member of a large hunting group. He is an independent hunter. He usually behaves very low-key. Very few people know him. Jolajito said, I happened to go to the ruins with him twice before I left. Those things he heard from his teammates. Is it true? Hound grinned with an expression of disbelief. Could it be that his teammates lied to you just to brag? I don't know if it's true or not, but that man is really strong, especially his ability to play with throwing knives. He's simply amazing. Do you know the Blood Rock in the Rust Ridge Mountains? Because the rock contains a lot of iron. Mine, the entire rock wall looks dark red and has high hardness. But the throwing knife he threw can be pierced into the rock wall without its handle. I feel that even Layton's robotic arm is not that exaggerated. Is he very good at using throwing knives? Is this guy, nicknamed 33, the Hound was stunned for a moment, is he carrying 33 dart-shaped throwing knives forged from nano alloy, usually doesn't talk much and is very serious. He especially hates people smoking in front of him, right? Ah. You know him. This time, it was Jolagita who was surprised. I know. This guy used to be in the field force and was the deputy captain of the Velociraptor assault team. Later, during a mission, their Velociraptor assault team suffered heavy losses. Even the captain died in the battle. He also retired due to injury. There is no news. I didn't expect that he would actually become a ruin hunter. By the way, how many of them are there? Not many, about 7 or 8 people. They are all quite old, and judging from their behavior, they are a group of extremely self-disciplined guys. They also said that they were retired soldiers, but they did not say which army they retired from. Zwilagita said, looking at Hound and Layton, I originally thought veterans were like them, until I met you two. Hey, it seems that these few of them should be the remaining members of the Velociraptor team back then, Hound said. Logically speaking, their pension should be enough for them to live a comfortable second half of their lives. Why? Why did you run out to do this? One of them told me about this. Swilagita hesitated and said, he said that after listening to the deafening gunshots for half his life, he was used to lying in the harsh trenches. Now he is lying on the soft, but I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. When I closed my eyes, I would see images I didn't want to recall, so I ran out. War traumatic stress syndrome, Yvonne said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 538. War traumatic stress syndrome, Yvonne continued, is a type of PTSD. The most famous example in history is undoubtedly the Annan War that occurred from the 1950s to the 1970s. According to incomplete statistics, more than one-third of the American soldiers who participated in the Annan War suffered from this kind of mental illness. In this war, the American Army killed about 60,000 soldiers, but many of the surviving soldiers returned to China. Instead of ending their lives by suicide, the number of these suicides has even exceeded the number of soldiers who died directly on the battlefield. I've heard about this war. Hound curled his lips and said, it is said that retired veterans will immediately become nervous as soon as they hear the sound of helicopter blades or metal collision, and even draw their guns and shoot at them. People around them shoot. In addition, they will also have hallucinations when they go to places with dense vegetation or complex terrain. They always suspect that there are people hiding in those trees and shrubs, pointing guns at themselves. This is a very rare phenomenon in the history of war. This is a classic topic. One of the compulsory courses for field army officers is to pay attention to and ensure the mental health of their subordinates. The Hound paused, and a hint of sadness flashed through his eyes, but what's the use? The people who wrote the project are experts in white coats, sitting in laboratories or offices. They have no personal experience. Having experienced the cruelty of the battlefield, how can you help those soldiers get out of their nightmares? Let's not mention this for now, Yvonne said solemnly, since these survivors of the Velociraptor team suffer from war traumatic stress syndrome, will letting them join become a decision, an unstable one, factor? Yvonne originally wanted to say a time bomb, but after thinking about it, He changed it to a more euphemistic term. People suffering from PTSD, especially veterans with combat trauma emergency syndrome, are fine without being stimulated. If they accidentally hit their stressors, the situation will be more troublesome than a few black sheep mixed in. At least the purpose of those black sheep is for their own interests, and no matter how much they go too far, they will still retain some sense. However, a veteran with an outbreak of war trauma emergency syndrome is a complete madman and cannot communicate at all. But I think they are all quite normal, and they were all talking and laughing along the way. They don't look like the kind of people with mental problems. Swilajito scratched his head and said. When mental patients are not sick, they are no different from normal people. Hound sat down cross-legged and tapped the edge of the hard rubber boot sole with his fingertips. I think we should reconsider this kind of thing. The main thing is to seek stability. I agree with Old Dog's point of view, Kaylan said. As far as the information I have obtained so far, there are indeed some indigenous creatures living inside the battleship, but there are no particularly powerful ones. The mutated lava Kant Harris in the power room is a special case. What we need are experienced hunters, and the requirements for personal strength are actually not high. Just as Kaylan finished speaking, the phone in his pocket suddenly buzzed and vibrated. He took it out and saw that the profile picture displayed on the screen was that of a familiar fat man, Yayan from the Ya family group. Glancing at the dialog box of the other party applies for video communication, Kaylan covered the phone's camera with his thumb, and then clicked OK. Hello, Mr. Yet. Is it Brother Kaylan? Yayan's voice sounded a little eager, and it also contained a bit of uncontrollable excitement. Ah, it's me, Mr. Yet, you are calling my mobile phone, so of course I am the one who answers the phone, Kaylan replied. But, why is the picture over there so dark? I can't see you, Yayan asked. Oh, this is because there is no light here, so I can't see it. There's no light. But it should be daytime over there right now, shouldn't you be in? Yayan stopped abruptly. What, Brother Kaylan, we should be considered friends, right? Forget it. From the first words Yayan said, Kaylan already knew the other party's intention. Not to mention his sentence, it should be daytime over there now, which meant that Yayan already knew. Knowing that Kaylan and the others were at the Mukhi military base, he must have known about the heretical sex invasion and the ancient battleship. Yes, Consortium has developed 3 more derivative models of the Phoenix skeleton. I'll have someone deliver it to you in 2 days. Oh, yes, and the set of power armor you borrowed when you went to the South 16th District last time to find someone. Now it has been finalized and put into production, and I have also specifically asked the production department to reserve a few sets of customized models for you. No reward for no merit, Mr. Ye, just tell me straight away, why do you have anything to do with us? Kaylan said bluntly. What, I got some news. Did you just come back from the molten mine area? Yes. Did you make a big discovery in the mining area? That's right. I heard that the harvest this time is amazing. No, it's already on the news headlines. Kaylan said with a smile, young master Ye, please don't test me. The reason you called me is about the Agunakota matter. Kaylan simply released his fingers covering the phone's camera and quickly walked to the edge of the giant pit. He slowly turned the angle of the camera and scanned the entire stone wall. The crystal circuit structures flowing with various colors of light and unparalleled in complexity and precision were all included in the image. Although Yayan did not make a sound, Kaylan could hear his breathing becoming obviously heavier. Brother Kaylan, is this the inside of the ancient battleship Agunakota? Yayan swallowed a large mouthful of saliva with great difficulty and stuttered. I heard that this battleship was built by a civilization that was more advanced than Alpha civilization. Is this true? Oh, it seems that Mr. Ye has obtained a lot of information. Kaylan took back his mobile phone. Yes, what you just saw is the central engine of the power room of the Agunakota, but as for this battleship, whether it was built by a third civilization or not, I can't say. it has to be identified by professionals before we can draw a conclusion. Oh my God, when I first got the news, I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect that these were all true. Yan murmured, how on earth did you get this battleship out? Master Ye, do you think it sounds ridiculous for relic hunters like us who only pick up rubbish in ruins to be associated with such a magnificent ancient battleship? Kaylan teased. No, what do you mean by a relic hunter who can only pick up trash? I have always thought that the relic hunter profession is very awesome and cool. Besides, Brother Kaylan, you are my savior. Why would I say this to you? I have always been optimistic about you and your god hunting group. I know that you will definitely be able to do great things, but... Yan swallowed again, and the order of the words was slightly confusing, but what I didn't expect was that, this business, is also too big. It's really, a little too big. This is completely beyond my imagination. Yeah, it's a billion points bigger, Kaylan nodded. Let's not talk about it for now. When I came to you this time, I actually got the news that the United Parliamentary Group decided to open this battleship as the 19th S-class ruins, but this opening is not open to all organizations and organizations. It's open to individuals, but only with the permission of the person in charge can you participate in the exploration and development of this relic. Yan rubbed his hands nervously. I heard that, Brother Kaylan, you are the one, principal. Who did you listen to? Kaylan looked at the nervous and expectant look on the little fat man's face, and felt a little funny in his heart, so he teased. I can't tell where the news came from, but I can only guarantee that the news is reliable, Yan said with a confused look on his face. Since you know the news is reliable, why are you still asking me? Kaylan narrowed his eyes. Ask the person who gave you the news. No. Brother Kaylan, you have misunderstood me. You also know that I have no ability and have no access to the core power of the family. In fact, the person who received the news is my father. The reason why I can know these things are all because I have a good personal relationship with you, so the family decided to send me to find you. As he said that, Yan suddenly changed his attitude, but there is one thing I can guarantee. Within the scope of my authority, I will try my best to help Brother Kaylan get as many benefits as possible. Brother Kaylan, if you have any requests, just put them forward, even if it is outside my authority, I will reflect it. As long as we, the Ye family, can satisfy the elders and the board of directors, I think my father and the others will not refuse. Tisk, you guy, you haven't learned how to negotiate with others at first glance, Kaylan said with a smile. How can anyone quote their entire bottom price as soon as they come up? How can you bargain with me later? It's not that I don't want to bargain, it's that there is no room for bargaining at all. Kaylan always felt that Yan was about to cry. Not only our Ye family, but other big families and consortiums have also received the news. They are looking for your contact information all over the world. You know, right now, in the reception room of your hunting group headquarters, there are at least high-level characters from 12 different forces waiting, and even the door is full of people waiting. Your fiancée, Miss Soma, has been harassed to the point of turning off all communication devices, and I can't even get through to her private number. Yan paused and continued with a grimace. Brother Kaylan, this is not a reciprocal negotiation at all, but a big Black Friday sale. If you are quick, you will have it, but if you are slow, you will not. If those people also you are all like me, if you have your private number, your phone number will probably be blown up. Hey, Leighton on the side suddenly exclaimed, I just checked the business mailbox of our hunting group. There were only a few advertising emails last night, but now there are 2,000 unread emails, among which many of them are VIP emails with the marks of those top consortiums. There are 2,000 emails because the mailbox can only temporarily store 2,000 unread emails. When you process the previous emails, more emails will be sent in the future. Yan also heard Lei Dun on the side. The voice said with a wry smile, Brother Kaylan, Now you know how popular you are, right? Is the exploration and development rights of Yagonactor really that important? Kaylan asked. In fact, if there are any important discoveries, they will usually be sent to the research institute first, and wait until the research institute can crack them after that. Can't you just buy it from the institute? Well, by that time, we will really be unable to keep up with the hot stuff even if we eat shit. To tell you the truth, our family's new body development is actually in trouble, and several technologies have encountered bottlenecks. The Phoenix skeleton, the development cost is 60 times that of the previous generation of main skeleton, but the performance has only improved by less than 10%, which is still the result of using a large number of experimental technologies. That's true, Layton interjected. There are many innovations in the Phoenix skeleton, but I think they are unnecessary. It's not that you are superfluous, but the stability of those new technologies is too poor, just to pursue that little bit. To improve the performance of the child, it will significantly increase the instability of the body, which is not a good deal at all. There's nothing we can do about it. Almost all the new technologies cracked by the Institute have been bought by us. I'm afraid there won't be much breakthroughs in the past few years. As for competitors such as Anaheim, it is impossible to sell the new technologies developed to us. In recent years, our market share has actually been declining, which is why the board of directors is so anxious. It's good. Healthy competition breaks the monopoly and benefits consumers. Kaylan joked again. If the mecha market is monopolized by your family, the price will probably double. Hey, brother Kaylan, please stop joking. This ancient battleship is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us and all consortiums. Whoever seizes the opportunity will be able to win in the future. To have the right to speak in the technological competition, if nothing else, the three halos at the tail of the ancient battleship are probably a suspension technology that is completely different from the concept of anti-gravity devices. If this thing can be miniaturized and used on battleships as for the mecha, the improvement in performance is simply unimaginable. There are also weapons that can directly cause damage to living organisms and can also distinguish between ourselves and the enemy. Oh my god, I can't even imagine how it works. Seeing that Yan was so excited that he was salivating, Kaylan couldn't help but think, if you guys knew that this battleship also had a Star Destroyer cannon and a jump device, wouldn't you be afraid that you would faint? Well, I have a question. What we need now is a partner to explore the ruins. In other words, what we lack are ruin hunters, but I remember that you, the consortium, don't seem to have a hunting group. P.S. It's almost the end of the month. Please vote, Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 539. Hey, don't worry, it will be available soon, Yan said. Soon? Kaylan asked doubtfully. A complete hunting group requires 4 indispensable resources: personnel, equipment, and intelligence. Among them, the personnel issue is the most difficult to solve. If a new training camp is established and new people are trained, it will take at least a year to complete the entire training process. And these people who have just graduated from the training camp can only be regarded as rookies among rookies. If they want to obtain a decent team of hunters, they must start from low-level ruins, accumulate exploration experience bit by bit, and improve their qualifications. Even if there are experienced senior people leading this process, it will take at least 3 to 5 years for them to grow up. This is still a conservative estimate. If this team accidentally encounters an unexpected situation and is wiped out, then all the early work will basically be in vain, and they will have to start over. Don't think that the chance of this kind of thing is very low. In fact, every year, several new hunting groups overturn in low-level ruins. Anyway, the technological level of Alpha civilization is far ahead of humans. Even if it is low-level, the preservation measures in the ruins are deadly enough for humans. If Consortium wants to establish a hunting group in a short period of time, it has only 2 methods: spending money to poach employees and recruiting lone hunters. However, These two methods also have obvious shortcomings. First, the temporary team of hunters without running in, the tacit understanding is generally very poor, and if you meet someone with a conflicting personality, there may be internal friction. Secondly, whether it is a person poached from another hunting group or a free person hired by a head hunting company, identity and loyalty cannot be guaranteed. It may be a spy planted by others. If it is a business competitor, then it is okay, but if it is a member of a heretical sect, then the trouble will be big. If you plan to temporarily recruit a group of hunters to form a hunting group, I'm afraid this won't work. Kaylan continued. This is too unreliable. This is not a final exam in school. Rely on improvising a few nights before the exam. You can pass the passing mark just by hugging the Buddha's feet. Of course, we also know that it is too late to temporarily form a new hunting group, Ye Yan replied, but the board of directors thought of a more direct method. Do you think a complete gray bird hunting group is qualified to participate in this time exploration operation? Gray bird hunting group, of course Kaylan has heard of this hunting group. The Gray Bird Hunting Group is a consortium-level hunting group affiliated with the Sierra Consortium. It has always been in the top 3 of the hunting group rankings. Kaylan subconsciously glanced at the latest hunting group rankings. The Gray Bird icon was ranked second, 3 places higher than their Hunting God hunting group, who had just broken into the top 5. As for the difference in points, the Gray Bird hunting group has 10 times more points than the Hunting God hunting group. Of course, there is nothing that can be done about it. Although the Hunting God hunting group is also a consortium-level hunting group, the only truly useful hunters are Kaylan and the others, while the Gray Bird hunting group alone has nearly 4 registered hunters. 100 people, including the support staff and those trainees, handymen, intelligence agents, etc. who cannot obtain the title of formal members due to the upper limit of the number. The entire hunting group has as many as 3,000 active personnel. With so many people, they can carry out dozens of exploration tasks at the same time. Even if they explore only low-level ruins, if they add up, the points they can get in the end are very considerable. But what makes Kaylan a little puzzled is that the Sierra Consortium, the owner of the Gray Bird hunting group, is not very large. Compared with behemoths like Ye and Morgan, they can only be regarded as a third-rate consortium, but there are specialties in the industry. Although the Sierra Consortium is not good at doing business, it is quite good at running a hunting group. There is a saying that has been circulating in the hunter circle: the income of the Gray Bird hunting group accounts for more than 80% of the total income of the entire Sierra Consortium. As for the remaining 20%, it is basically related to the exploration of ruins and hunter training. Business. It can even be said that the Sierra Consortium and the Sierra family have completely tied themselves to the high-risk and high-return business of ruin exploration. In many cases, the name Sierra Consortium can even be associated with Gray Bird hunting group is equated with this. But now Ye Yan has thrown out the name Gray Bird hunting group and said that it is a complete Gray Bird hunting group. It can't be that they, the Ye family, bought the Gray Bird hunting group, right? Kaylan felt that even if the boss of the Sierra Consortium sold his wife and daughter, he would never sell the Gray Bird hunting group. Without the Gray Bird hunting group, what would be left of the Sierra Consortium? Could it be that you acquired the Sierra Consortium? Kaylan asked. But there is one thing to say: if one has the financial resources to take over the power of the entire Sierra Consortium, then Ye can definitely be considered one of them. That's not to say. Ye Yan's fat face trembled slightly. We just signed a lease agreement with the Sierra Consortium and temporarily rented the Gray Bird hunting group. Anyway, with there I understand that it is impossible to win over other forces with my own abilities, so it is better to take this opportunity to participate and get some benefits. Well, that's true, but if the entire Gray Bird hunting group is sent here, there will be a lot of people. We only need an elite team of about 20 people. Including the logistics personnel, it is best not to more than 50 people. As for the personnel selection process, it must be done carefully. If possible, it is best to investigate the background identity, social circle, daily routine, behavior, and hobbies of the selected candidates. Remember, I would rather if I want a hunter with a clean foundation and average strength to join the team. You absolutely don't want to send me a guy who is top-notch but whose origins are unclear. Kaylan paused and emphasized again, I have to tell you something. This battleship is almost the property of the heretical section. Do you understand what I mean? Yes, of course I understand, Yayan nodded hurriedly. By the way, brother Kaylan, do you think you have agreed? You have to find someone to cooperate with anyway. Rather than discussing business with unfamiliar outsiders, it's better to take advantage of your own brothers, right? Kaylan quietly brought the relationship between the two parties closer, and Yayan also echoed in a very tactful manner, that's right, the good news shouldn't go to outsiders. In this way, you first select the people, and then put some of your family's people in it, and then mix the two groups of people and conduct a period of closed training. I have to wait for the renovation project of Muka to be completed. Only then will we return to the Ark. Only when all the matters are almost resolved will Yagunactor be officially opened for exploration. I have calculated that it will take 2 to 3 months, and this time will be used. It should be enough for these grey bird people to get along with your people. What about other consortiums? Yayan asked cautiously. I don't plan to let too many people enter the battleship for the first time. Our god hunting group plus your family members, plus people from the military and research institutes, we estimate that there will be more than 150 people. Other consortia, let's not consider it for now. Kaylan didn't even take the Security Bureau into consideration. The Security Bureau couldn't send out a few agents who had been ruin hunters anyway, so these guys let them be responsible for maintaining the external order of the ruins. That's fine. As for the in-depth exploration, let the professionals do it. So, apart from the official organization, we can be considered an exclusive partner. Yayan couldn't help but said ecstatically, an exclusive partner, and also the first batch of explorers to enter the interior of the battleship. The gold content of this title is really too high. He could even imagine the shocked and joyful expressions of the elders when he brought the news back to the board of directors later. In this kind of thing, as long as you can be one step ahead of others, you can basically lead step by step. Even if Kaylan and the others cooperate with more consortiums in the future, the exploration and development progress of other consortiums will definitely not be able to keep up with their group of pioneers. To put it bluntly, those who come late have no choice but to follow behind them. Is it possible that the family group will reach a new peak in the hands of Yayan? Thinking of this, even Yayan, who usually didn't care much about the internal affairs of the consortium, couldn't help but get excited. Although he couldn't help but feel sleepy when he saw those complicated reports and design drawings, it didn't mean that he had no ambition at all, especially Yayan, who had been overpowered by other outstanding brothers since he was a child. It is very clear that the elders in the family have never had any expectations for him. It is precisely because of this that he has broken the pot and gradually turned into a person who has all the skills of eating, drinking, and having fun, but has no contact at all. The dandy young master who has gained the core power of the family. But now, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity stood before him. As long as he can seize this opportunity, no matter how bad he was in the first 20 years of his life, from this moment on, no one will look down on him. Yayan couldn't help clenching his fists, and he felt no pain at all when his nails dug into the fat of his palms. 4 days later, 150 kilometers southwest of the Ark. The altitude is 9,600 meters, the weather is clear and the visibility is good. The water drop-shaped ancient warship Yagunactor slowly stopped, and the 3 apertures at the tail of the ship began to expand and gradually merge together, forming a thin film of light that covered the entire battleship was wrapped. This is an anti-theft measure. Except for Kaylan himself, anyone who attempts to enter the warship will be blocked by this light film. Although this light film can be forcibly offset with an energy shield, The noise generated by doing so is enough to alarm the Ark 150 kilometers away, not to mention the fleet that is on alert around the Yagonactor around the clock. After setting a series of standby options, Kaylan was the last to leave the power room. Just as he was teleported outside the battleship, a luxurious transport plane came up and opened the hatch in the air. Stepping on the invisible air steps under his feet, Kaylan walked towards the transport plane step by step while looking around. This is a brand new fleet. All the warships are new warships that have just appeared within 6 months. As for the people who control them, they are elite officers and soldiers selected from the major fleets. Although the number of warships is not as good as those of the main fleet. But in simulation exercises with several other fleets, this new fleet has never lost a game. This fleet was named Fleet Zero and was specially formed to protect Agunakotaur. Although the commander of this fleet is not Kaylan, he serves as Agunakotaur the captain, and the person in charge of the S-019 ruins can obtain this fleet when the special situations of No. 1, No. 2, number 39, and number 45 occur. Temporary command authority. In addition, his personal authority level is also the same as that of the commander of this fleet. He can go wherever he wants on any warship in this fleet. There are no restricted areas, including no one within the fleet commander has the authority to give orders to him. But from another perspective, the commander of Fleet Zero is probably the commander with the least autonomy among the major fleets of Ark. All his actions must obey the orders of the Undead Crew Association, not so much command. It would be more appropriate to say that an official is a tool used to convey messages. Kaylan finally walked into the cabin of the transport plane. The huge cabin was very empty, with only 2 beautiful girls in flight attendant uniforms standing on the left and right. Hound and others had left Agunakotaur a day earlier. This transport plane was specially arranged to pick him up. Kaylan glanced at the 2 rows of chairs with leather cushions on the left and right, then at the 2 tall and beautiful flight attendants, and said, "There are so many seats, why are you still standing? It would be a waste not to sit." The 2 flight attendants were startled at first, and then one of them said, "Mr. Kaylan, we are here to provide you with services. This is not appropriate." "What's inappropriate?" "I just had a meal and I'm not thirsty." "I don't need your services for anything." Kaylan sat down and said, "Aren't you tired of standing like this?" "Not tired." Before a flight attendant finished speaking, Kaylan suddenly jumped up and knocked her to the ground. Then he pressed her chest with his knee. The fingers and thumb of his right hand used force at the same time to pinch the other person's tender cheek. "Aren't you tired of using the base of your tongue to send messages to the outside world all the time?" Kaylan put his other hand into her mouth, pulled hard, and pulled out a bloody back molar. This is a real tooth, but the inside of the tooth has been completely hollowed out, and a set of extremely concealed communication devices has been installed. Near the root of the tooth, there is a small touch-sensitive piece that is imperceptible to the naked eye. With subtle movements of the tongue, complete sentences of information can be written and sent out. The other stewardess was completely stunned, leaning against the wall and not daring to move. "Let the entire fleet be under martial law. No one is allowed to move." Kaylan turned his head and shouted to the stewardess, "The effective distance of her communication device is only 800 meters, so the person receiving the message must be on a nearby warship." Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 540. What are you still doing? Go quickly. Oh, the stewardess realized at this time. In her panic, she forgot that she had a headset on her ear. She stumbled to the intercom installed on the side of the bulkhead, grabbed the phone and said, "Cabin." Something happened in the cabin. VIP subdued a flight attendant. Ah no, it wasn't VIP who attacked actively. It was another flight attendant. She. The stewardess was at a loss for words for a moment. She turned to look at Kaylan at a loss. Kaylan sighed helplessly and said, "This woman is a spy, and she has hidden secrets hidden in her teeth communication device. Oh, the flight attendant nodded sharply, and then repeated Ian's words into the microphone. The VIP said that the other flight attendant was a spy, and she had a hidden communication device hidden in her teeth. Lan couldn't help but want to hold his forehead when he saw this. If all the members of Fleet 0 are elites carefully selected from the major fleets of ARC, then these two elites will definitely not be included in this group of elites. Flight attendants, apart from being good-looking, these two people have absolutely no professional qualities at all. Wait a minute, looks good. Lan once again looked at the appearance of the two of them, and it had to be said that both of them could be considered top beauties in appearance, even in the ARC where artificial beauties were all over the streets. Lan felt that he might have seen too many stunning beauties like Zofia and Ze Luo, so when he saw these two people for the first time, he didn't have the amazing feeling that ordinary people should have. Even though one of them was pale and the other was pinched by Ian's hand, their beauty did not diminish at all. Instead, they showed a different kind of charm, which made people want to treat them more cruelly. The stewardess, who was pinned down by Lan under her knees, kept moaning slightly. Rather than moaning, it would be more appropriate to describe it as panting. As for the other stewardess, she was shivering while holding the microphone. Looking at Lan saw at this moment that she had not pressed the call button at all, and was just talking to the air. She is acting. Something was wrong with both of them. Not only was the one pinned under Ian's knees a spy, there was also something wrong with the other person. When Lan first entered the cabin, he noticed that one of the flight attendants had some unusual subtle movements in his jaw and throat. Most people might think that this person suffered from chronic pharyngitis and the like, and would often make subconscious swallowing movements. But she was so stubborn that she happened to bump into Lan, who had been working part-time as a programmer for a while. Lan once received an order to write a program for this kind of communication device that is installed in the teeth and sends messages through tongue movement or tooth tapping. He is quite familiar with this type of device. He has even seen a special in the demonstration video. The experimenters' movements were almost exactly the same as the flight attendants'. In order to confirm whether he saw it wrong, Lan even used the ability of time stop. If these two women are spies? Why would someone put spies on this transport plane? Lan wondered in his heart, and at the same time relaxed his knees slightly to prevent this woman from being pressed to the ground by him. The stewardess suffocated to death. Lan will only ride this transport plane once, and he does not carry any information or valuable samples with him. Let alone sending a spy equipped with a communication device to keep an eye on him. Even if the cabin is full of surveillance cameras, it's impossible for them to steal any useful information. If it was an assassination, it would be even more impossible. Neither of the two women carried weapons, and they were not enhanced or transformed people. As for the container of the seed of corrosion, it was even more impossible to get on the transport plane, even if they attacked first, and Lan could easily fight back one-on-one. The total journey was less than 30 minutes, so why go to great lengths to insert two useless spies? Strangeness. Just when Lan was about to expose another flight attendant, he suddenly realized that his body had gradually become hot and hot since he didn't know when, as if there was a ball of fire running around in his body. Coupled with the delicate body pressed under his knees and the soft moans that reached his ears from time to time, Lan suddenly became wary. His nose twitched, and sure enough, in the closed cabin, he smelled a bit of a strange fragrance. If the hound was here, he would have noticed something abnormal the first time he entered the cabin. Could it be some kind of volatile drug with aphrodisiac effect? Lan was stunned. Can such a cliched plot happen to me? Following the source of the smell, Lan lowered his head and looked under the coffee table between the two rows of seats. Under the coffee table, there was a shelf for placing small things, and a container that looked the same as lipstick was placed on its side. The lid has been mostly unscrewed, and this weird fragrance is emanating from inside. Kaylan took out the lipstick, tightened the cap and threw it into his pocket. If he guessed correctly, this thing should have been used by one of the two flight attendants as cosmetics for touch-up, bringing the transport plane to the name. In addition to this pill disguised as lipstick, Kaylan also found something on the shelf that made him laugh or cry: 2 boxes of condoms labeled natural latex and ultra-thin time-lapse, and some small, exquisite, and convenient condoms. Toys to carry. If this transport plane is a private jet owned by a rich man, then Kaylan would not be surprised at all to find these things under the coffee table. But the problem is that this transport plane belongs to the battle sequence of the Zero Fleet. This is a military aircraft. Tell me, who sent you here? Kaylan simply let go of the stewardess on the ground and landed on the coffee table. While throwing a box of condoms in his hand, Kaylan looked at the two women with frightened expressions. Yes, I'm sorry, that's my personal belongings, I forgot to put them away. The standing stewardess said, staggering towards Kaylan, reaching out to catch Kaylan, but she was thrown into the air. She picked up the box of condoms, but when she was less than 2 meters away from Kaylan, she seemed to be tripped by something and stumbled forward. The heel of her high-heeled shoes was just right. It was broken at this time. The flight attendant's feet suddenly buckled, and she lost her balance and fell towards Kaylan. If Kaylan reached out to catch her at this time, he would be able to hug Wang Xiangnef right into his arms, but he stood up at lightning speed and stepped aside. Bang! The flight attendant hit the coffee table firmly. The impact was not light. If the 4 corners of the coffee table were not wrapped in leather and filled with soft sponge, she would have been bleeding. I'm sorry, the beauty trap is of no use to me, Kaylan said lightly. At the beginning, he could not resist even a beauty of Sophia's level, let alone 2 women who were not as beautiful as his fiancée and whose identities were obvious. A woman with big problems. Mr. Kaylan, you may have misunderstood, The flight attendant who fell on the coffee table struggled to get up, ignoring the swollen ankles and bruises on her knees and elbows. She had crawled in front of Kaylan and stretched out her hand to grab his trouser leg. I'm just too nervous. I just graduated from the flight attendant training institution last month. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. You just graduated from flight attendant school last month, so why did you choose to enlist in the army instead of working in a private airline? What about your recruit training phase? Even an orderly on an airship must undergo 3 months of enlistment training. Right? And why were you assigned to Fleet Zero when you just joined the army? And you brought so many, Kaylan looked at the advertisements on the box that couldn't help but make people feel a little itchy. Special private belongings. Me. There are too many loopholes in your words. At first, I thought you two were spies, but I have given up this idea now. Who the hell would send such a pig-brained spy to steal information? Kaylan threw the box away. To the stewardess, honestly, who put you two on this transport plane? I don't know. The flight attendant shook her head. That person gave me a lot of money, and said that as long as I can serve the VIP well, no matter which method is used, he will give me more than the deposit. 10 times the reward. Is your real profession a flight attendant? Kaylan stared at her and asked, isn't it a service staff engaged in one of those special industries? I am. The flight attendant nodded vigorously and said with a cry, I am really a flight attendant. You can check my personal information, I am definitely not lying to you. I really just graduated from a flight attendant training institution, because of my appearance, I had been accepted by an airline company of a large consortium, but just the day before I joined the company, that person came to me with money. I couldn't refuse his offer. An airline company belonging to a large consortium. Which consortium? The Mitsui Consortium. The Mitsui Foundation? The one in Sakurai Na's family. Kaylan thought to himself, it probably wasn't the Mitsui Foundation. If you want to distance yourself from this kind of thing, you should stay as far away as possible instead of getting involved. Among them, although it cannot be ruled out that the drama was directed and performed by the Mitsui Consortium, Kaylan feels that the IQ of the Mitsui group should not have dropped to this level. What else did that person say to you? Kaylan continued to ask. No. No more. The stewardess glanced at her cautiously, then slowly raised her hand and unbuttoned her uniform jacket. She seemed to be trying to impress Kaylan with her figure, but unfortunately, she completely underestimated Ian's ability to resist temptation. Well, it's quite interesting. Put on your clothes. Kaylan only glanced at it and turned away. I'm not interested in you, and you don't need to sell your body, but if you are willing to tell me if you find out the true identity of the person who paid the money, I can give you twice the amount of money he paid, and I can promise you to ensure your personal safety. How about it? Is this deal a better deal? The two stewardesses looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. We really don't know the identity of that person. Then who were you sending a message just now? Kaylan pointed at the stewardess who had just gotten up from the ground and was still breathing hard. Maybe Ian's tooth extraction action was too rough, and a wisp of blood it flowed down from the corner of her mouth, down her smooth chin and onto her white neck. I really don't know. That person also installed this thing for me. He only said that after you get on the transport ship, you can use this thing to send messages, and then if you have sex with us, also send a message. As for who received the message, we have no idea. You think I'm easy to fool, don't you? Kaylan held the tooth in his hand and sneered. There are two common versions of this thing. The one that is triggered by tapping the teeth only takes half an hour to master, but the disadvantage is that the movements are large and easy to be discovered. The one you use is to send messages through tongue touch. The movements are more subtle, but it is extremely difficult to master, and it takes at least half a month of training. I'm just confused, since that guy has the time to train you to use this thing for half a month, why does he train you in anti-interrogation skills? No. You misunderstood. In fact, I don't need to send any complicated information. The flight attendant shook her head and said, that person said that as soon as you board the transport ship, you can just send a signal. When you start talking to us, send another signal. So that's it. Kaylan looked at the two of them suspiciously, then stood up and walked straight to the cockpit, and directly used his highest authority to brush his face and open the door. Although the two pilots were a little surprised that the VIP did not say hello and ran to the cockpit, they behaved quite calmly. One was still controlling the transport plane steadily, while the other turned his head and greeted the VIP. Kaylan asked, Mr. Kaylan, why are you here? Kaylan could tell at a glance that these two men were truly elite soldiers, and the military ranks of one captain and one lieutenant on their collars also clearly illustrated this point. What's going on with the two flight attendants in the cabin? Kaylan put his arms on the back of the chair and asked in a deep voice, aren't they soldiers? Oh, you said those two stewardesses were specially arranged for you by Colonel Roland. A strange smile suddenly appeared on the pilot's face. He said that these are gifts specially prepared for you. Gift? Kaylan was slightly startled. What gift? Isn't this just naked sexual bribery? How dare you do it so blatantly? Colonel Roland, isn't he afraid that the matter will be exposed and he will be sent to a military court? This is gambling with your own future. By the way, what is the origin of Colonel Roland? He is the captain of the No. 9 frigate. Our transport plane is affiliated with the No. 9 frigate. If you want to see him, you will see him soon, the pilot said, pointing to the porthole in the air not far ahead. There is a Tower Shield class frigate about 300 meters long suspended in the air. The logo of Fleet 0 and the number No 009 are painted on the hull. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi San. Chapter 541. I'm curious, How did Lieutenant Colonel Roland rise to this level? Did he rely on giving women to his superiors? Kaylan said coldly. Don't he know that sexual bribery is a serious violation of military discipline? With this alone, I can not only smash his military rank to the bottom, but even let him stay in the cell for 20 or 30 months. As for you two, if you are treated as an accomplice, you should only stay for 6 months. That's about it? Mr. Kaylan, your joke is a bit not very funny. The pilot's tone suddenly became stiff. I suggest you change the name. Kaylan took out the lipstick from his pocket. Although it hasn't been sent to the laboratory yet, you two should know what is in it, right? Then it can be considered that someone is trying to use inhaled drugs to affect me. To put it more seriously, this can also be regarded as a deliberate murder, right? After all, if this thing is inhaled in its entirety, it will definitely cause irreversible damage to the human body, right? The corner of the pilot's mouth twitched twice, and he wanted to complain in his heart, the volatile dose of that thing has been strictly controlled. Even if it is held in front of the nostrils and inhaled for several hours, it is unlikely to cause damage to the body. If you want to die, you can't kill it unless you put it in. It is only possible to pull out the core of the drug and swallow it whole, but the problem is that the total amount of the illegal drug that Kaylan found under the coffee table has indeed exceeded the lethal dose. Threshold line. The nature of the matter is completely different. This is like the drug trafficking crime in the old era. If the drug sold by the criminal is cocaine, the sentencing standards for 49 grams and 50 grams are completely different. The former is not enough to be sentenced to death on a single charge. And the latter are at least 15 years in prison, and there are many people who are even sentenced to life imprisonment and death. Especially in China, which has the world's leading drug control efforts, the government and society basically adopt a zero-tolerance attitude towards such criminals. Except for a few prisoners who have the circumstances to surrender or assist in solving crimes, judges generally try to be as lenient as possible. After the verdict, there are few cases where the person is given a lighter sentence. And the lipstick in Ian's hand has obviously reached a level that can be sentenced to death. Even if he draws his gun and kills the 2 flight attendants and the 2 pilots now, he will not have to do it afterwards. Bear any responsibility. The pilot suddenly felt that the soft leather seat under his buttocks was covered with steel needles, and his whole body tensed up. He said cautiously, then, that should. According to the special situation number 2 in the regulations, when Kaylan, the person in charge of Yagonactor, is assassinated, he will automatically obtain the temporary command of the entire Zero Fleet, and this command will has a higher priority than the former commander-in-chief of the fleet. Kaylan said, I think I was assassinated by 2 unidentified women just now, so. Then what do you think? How should this matter be handled now, sir? The pilot murmured for a long time before he said this. It's very simple. Put the entire fleet under martial law and immediately control the captain of the number 9 frigate, Colonel Roland. Kaylan said, if your performance satisfies me, I can exempt you two from responsibility in this matter. After all, if you are forced to death by a senior official, you were also forced by Colonel Roland, right? Yes. Sir, you are right. It was Colonel Roland who forced us. We are affiliated to the number 9 frigate, and we can only obey his arrangements. When they heard that they had the opportunity to be exempted from responsibility, the 2 pilots nodded hurriedly in agreement. Road. Okay, it's time to put an end to this farce. Kaylan leaned forward, took off the intercom on the console, and turned on the switch. The pilot also had the insight to adjust the intercom channel to full on a common channel that can be heard by the fleet. Ahem, hello, everyone, I am Kaylan, the captain of Yagonactor. Kaylan said into the microphone, just now, I was assassinated by an unknown person. Fortunately, the situation was resolved in time. Control, according to the authority given to me in the Special Situation No. 2, I am now the temporary commander of the entire Zero Fleet. Kaylan noticed that the warships hovering around Dagunakota instantly entered combat mode, some destroyers were directly lifted into the sky, and dozens of carrier-based aircraft were on standby instantly. Dispatched, the decks of the gunboats were opened one after another, and the turrets hidden inside the ship were raised one by one. As for those frigates with high-power energy shield-generating devices, they were divided into two batches at this time, and one batch of Asiagunak Toll gathered around, and another group came closer to the transport plane that Kaylan was riding. Well, the formation is not chaotic at all, and the training is quite good. Kaylan nodded and commented in his heart. Kaylan paused and continued, according to the interrogation results, there is a close connection between the assassin who attempted the assassination and the captain of the No. 9 frigate. Before he finished speaking, more than half of the warships in the fleet aimed their guns at the No. 9 frigate. The No. 9 frigate, which was originally in the center of the queue, was instantly surrounded by its friendly forces. All officers and soldiers of frigate No. 9, give up resistance immediately. Also, are there anyone from the Security Bureau in the fleet? This is the 11th Field Agent Team of the Security Bureau. I am the team leader Cheng Dong. The bridge of the No. 9 frigate and the captain himself have been controlled. Please give instructions. A young male's voice rang on the fleet's public channel. It turns out that the people from the Security Bureau are on the No. 9 frigate. Kaylan thought to himself that he was probably specially sent to protect himself. Unexpectedly, it had an unexpected effect at this time and saved him a lot of unnecessary trouble. Copy that. Kaylan responded, and then said to the pilot next to him, come aboard. Board which ship? Of course it's frigate No. 9, otherwise, which one could it be? Sir, are you going to shoot Colonel Roland? The pilot didn't know if there was a problem in his head, but he actually asked such a sentence. It's up to the military court to decide whether to shoot or not. I just want to ask him something. Kaylan glanced at the two nervous-looking women in the cabin behind. By the way, are there any handcuffs or anything like that? P.S. Thanks to Butterfly Su for the 520 starting coins, thank Zhang Yuniang for the 500 starting coins, thank Book Friend 141224230149355 for the 200 starting coins, thank the code names Xianyu and Byermus for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chenmi San. Chapter 542. Yes, but... The pilot was stunned for a moment, although there was a hint of embarrassment on his face. Kaylan soon understood why he hesitated. There were indeed two pairs of handcuffs on the transport plane, but these two pairs of handcuffs were placed together with the pile of toys under the coffee table. The real purpose of these handcuffs is self-evident. Kaylan picked up these two handcuffs and looked at them. Although they were toys, they were at least made of alloy. Except for the heart-shaped pattern on them, the overall shape was no different from normal handcuffs. Except for transforming and strengthening people, it is impossible for ordinary people to break free by brute force alone. As an assassin, Kaylan naturally couldn't let the two stewardesses stand there uncontrollably. He made them sit side by side on the seats, and then handcuffed them to the armrest ring on the bulkhead. Together. As he got closer, Kaylan found two black plastic bags with breathing holes dug out from under the coffee table and put them over their heads. Kaylan estimated that these props were originally prepared for a gameplay called Incarceration Play, but now he has removed the play at the end. After being put in plastic bags, the two flight attendants began to sob quietly. Especially after hearing Kaylan pull out the pistol and pull the bolt and make a crisp click sound, one of them simply burst into tears. He stood up, and the other person knelt down directly and cried, "Please. Don't kill me. Please. You can do whatever you want, don't kill me." The two flight attendants had also heard the conversation between Kaylan and the pilot just now. They never thought that this incident that could only be regarded as a sexual bribery could be escalated to an assassination by Kaylan. The height of it frightened these two young girls out of their wits. This is the army, and it is also a special unit that executes important people. In order to ensure the absolute safety of the mission target, these officers basically hold the power to kill first and report later. Even if they are killed directly on the transport plane, it does not violate the regulations. "Don't be nervous, I'm just for safety," Kaylan said casually. He checked the bullets in the chamber and magazine, then turned off the safety and inserted the pistol into the pocket that was most convenient for him. The transport plane quickly flew into the hangar of the No. 9 frigate. The person who greeted Kaylan in the hangar was not the ground staff on the ship, but security agents wearing dark gray uniforms. "Mr. Kaylan, I am the leader of the 11th Field Team of the Security Bureau," Chen Dong, the voice that had just appeared on the public channel, sounded in front of Kaylan again. This was an ordinary-looking young man. He is the type who will become invisible in an instant if he is thrown into a crowd. If I insist on saying that his face has any characteristics, no characteristics is probably his biggest characteristic. The field team of the Security Bureau does not belong to Fleet Zero, so there is no need for the agent team leader named Chen Dong to call Kaylan sir. Even from a certain perspective, Kaylan does not have the power to directly command them. It's just that the mission of this 11th Field Team is to protect K-Ian's safety, so this group of people can also be regarded as K-Ian's temporary bodyguards. The captain of the No. 9 frigate, Colonel Roland Walter, and the main officers under him have been controlled by our people and are now temporarily detained in the confinement room on the ship. "Do you need me to take you there?" "Don't worry yet." Kaylan shook his head and threw the lipstick in his pocket to Chen Dong. "You have someone test the ingredients inside? In addition, ask the ground crew to inspect the interior of this transport plane, tear it down and search every corner, especially the passenger cabin." After saying that, Kaylan crossed his arms and stood in the open space in front of the hangar, watching the agents lead the ground crew and get into the cabin with tools such as pliers, wrenches, and crowbars. Those expensive leather seats and flocked carpets were roughly dismantled and moved outside one by one. Then several agents were responsible for further dismantling these things and carefully examining the internal structure. Soon, the agents of the Security Bureau discovered a miniature camera each in the seat, the cabin roof, mezzanine and the lighting. These cameras were all controlled by remote control, and the memory cards in them could continuously record high-precision images for 8 hours. Picture. Sure enough, if it were someone else, I'm afraid he would have become the leading actor in a short movie, Kaylan sneered inwardly. When surfing the internet, he often saw LSP netizens asking for seeds in the forum. Among the seeds they requested, in addition to those classic films, the most popular ones were the X scandals exposed by ARC's top executives or some rich people. Basically, as long as the pheasant media leaked a little bit of news, it didn't matter. Whether it's true or not, posts asking for relevant seeds will immediately hit the news. This kind of video can not only meet the needs of those LSPs, but also satisfy the public psychology of netizens. It is simply a natural headline material. Kaylan can definitely imagine that if a message titled "The Captain of the Ancient Battleship Yagunactor and the person in charge of the S-019 ruins was XX stewardess on the transport plane as soon as he took office, the scene was exciting and the gameplay was exciting, link XXXXXXXXXXXXXXX posts were posted online, how hot the scene would be. That was a complete loss of reputation. Even if Kaylan didn't care much about his reputation, he would never want his private parts to be exposed to the eyes of thousands of netizens. These cameras are all illegal equipment that have not been registered, and the serial numbers on the chips have also been erased, Chen Dong said. "It seems it's not an assassination, but someone wants to kill me," Kaylan shrugged. "Of course, judging from the dosage of that aphrodisiac, it's not a bad idea to label that guy an assassin, at least he can negotiate for the price. The next step is to raise the price from the ground up." "Are you going to interrogate Colonel Roland now?" "Yeah," Kaylan nodded. 2 hours later, Chen Dong walked out of the detention room, took out a tissue from his pocket, and carefully wiped off the few blood stains on his fingers. Did anything come out of the trial? Kaylan was sitting on the bench opposite the detention room, swinging a leather collar that was conveniently taken from the transport plane. He is just a chess piece and doesn't know much. Cheng Dong shook his head regretfully. His task is only to help the two flight attendants and the things they carry board the transport plane, but to receive the signal he was not the one who controlled the camera. Have you checked his personal account? After checking, a sum of 2 million credit points was deposited into his account 3 days ago. The payee was Blitz Mechanical Parts Company, and the reason for the payment was compensation for the unqualified parts provided last time. Model, but according to our investigation, the company has not provided parts for the number 9 frigate or even the entire number 0 fleet. Even if he does provide substandard parts, he will not be responsible for collecting the compensation. Kaylan took over the conversation and said, Blitzcrank, I remember it is a subsidiary of Anaheim, right? Yeah, the number 1 competitor of the consortium. As for the largest shareholder of Anaheim Electronics, it is Morgan Syndicate.